Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
just finished
everybody.
color coding. I think we're ready to actually do this thing.
I think we are. We're ready to do this. Jeff, I'm a little excited for the end.
Yeah?
Well,
You think so?
we have often talked about how like the single thing we spend the most like brain power on is the stupid go home joke that we do at the end of the episodes.
This is a good one.
I like this one.
A good one.
This is not my
Yeah.
favorite. My favorite was the one that we did at the end of
Objects at Rest.
No,
it
it was
at
the
Rest?
season
No?
5 recap. Or wrap
The recap,
up. The
yeah.
wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
The season 5 wrap up. It was that one. That was my favorite one we've ever done. This could be. This will be a top 5, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I say that realizing I actually don't remember most of them.
I know. We spend all this time on them. We deliver them. Gone.
Right. Because you know what? Not many people stick around for that particular joke. That's the thing. Like we start the thing and the whole thing just anyway. Hey, Council Chambers joining us live for the recording. Welcome.
Hey.
You guys are amazing. You're here right now. Hey, listen, if you're here, drop a hello in the comment section. I see Nia's over there, Joel's over there, Becky is there, Trey is there, Ben is down there. So
yeah,
see several people over there. Just a reminder for our folks in Council Chambers, when Jeff and I start the show, we're not going to be interacting with you guys, but please still comment and go through your stuff. We'll take care of that on the backside of the episode and go through all of those pieces. If you're here joining us on YouTube, welcome. You're amazing. We're so glad you're with us. What you guys are about to watch is Jeff and I recording an audio podcast. This is basically our recording of our recording and how we make that happen. Yeah. But this is behind the scenes. We don't edit this one. This is the real show, Jeff.
It is. This is the fun stuff.
This is the fun one.
This is the good thing.
Yeah. The other one is it's the polished, it's the cleaned up version, and it's the we're our best selves. This is you and me just being goofballs, you know, right. All the
messing up.
Right.
Oh, I forgot how to talk.
Yeah. I do notice in this, Nia is asking one day StreamYard will get a dark mode. Mine's in dark mode right now.
We have it now. I don't know if they have it for the viewers or not. Is the thing.
Yeah. But I have it in
before
dark mode now.
Before we start going, right? When something's off or weird, you just call it out. So you might notice this on YouTube more than on the audio. But I had a procedure done on my tongue. I had part of my tongue cut off
numb tongue
earlier this week.
He had numb tongue.
I have numb tongue, but now I have like stitches and a bunch of stuff here on the side of my tongue. So I'm good. Like I'm healing up well and everything, but I have to shape my mouth kind of weird to make some.
You know what you kind of remind me of right now, Jeff? Have you ever seen Hocus Pocus?
Just actually watched that. My daughter never seen it
the middle sister, Kathy Najimy. She does she has you
right,
kind of look like this
going
person right now.
Hey, if you got to be somebody, she's not the worst of the witches to me.
Dude, Kathy Najimy is way more talented, I think, than anybody really gives her credit for.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Sister Act is the show I really know her from.
Yeah.
Do you remember her from? She was one of the nuns.
Oh, absolutely.
For whatever reason, that's where my mind goes to first when I think of her, followed by a close second with Hocus Pocus. So
Hocus Pocus is mine, but she's Lebanese, so it's always good to see you.
All right.
She's born, I think, in Canada, I think.
Oh,
but,
okay. Just got a connection to Lebanese culture and heritage.
I do.
So
I do. Hey, what do you say we start this episode?
Let's start this episode. We're talking about, what is this, Racing the Night? Is that our episode?
Racing the Night.
All right, cool.
Sounds like a Lionel Richie record.
So what is to be gained by fighting?
Maybe nothing. Maybe a lot. I'd like to be the one to make that decision.
Jeff, I'm sorry, stop.
I want you to know.
Have you changed this intro?
Nope.
So you're telling me, and I'm almost positive, you tell me if I'm wrong, the very first voice that we hear and that we have always heard, is that Braytac?
Yeah.
Is that a drop from last week's episode?
It is. And it's so incredible. I thought the same thing last week. I'm like, totally out of the blue, pulled Braytac down.
Into the
summoned Braytac.
Right.
For this.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe it's because we also have a Stargate podcast.
That is true. Hey, if you guys aren't checking out Stargate for the first time, you don't have to go anywhere. It's right here on the Babylon 5 for the first time channel, or whatever we're calling this thing these days. You don't have to go anywhere. It's just here. So hang out with us and do that.
All right, back to break. There we said this is the show. There you go. Back to Braytac.
So what is to be gained by fighting?
Maybe nothing. Maybe a lot. I'd like to be the one to make that decision.
I want you to know that this thing just made a very large dent in my ship.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast, Babylon 5.
For the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin.
And I'm Brent Allen. You know, Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek nerds who also had podcasts that decided to watch Babylon 5 for the first time. And we fell in love with it so much that we're now continuing that journey with Crusade for the first time.
And we'll keep doing that for the first time thing where we look for those deep messages, the morals, the things that it holds up to society, just those things that make sci-fi so amazing. We'll be looking for that stuff. But Brent, this is not a Star Trek podcast, and those are not Star Trek references or Star Trek messages that we're looking for. And to keep us honest with that, we're going to play an old loved game here that we call the Rule of Three. That's a game that limits us to no more than 3 references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
And Jeff, what happens if we make one or more of those references?
You're going to hear this sound.
I'm going to make a prediction. We're going to hit them all today.
I think we might.
We're going to hit them all today.
I think we might. Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This one's off Apple Podcasts, and Brent, it's an interesting one, so buckle in for this ride. Jared Sk10 says...
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I don't know how to say the word. Jared Sk10, it's S-C-H.
Sten.
Jared Sten.
Sten. Okay.
Sten. Some sort of Austrian thing.
Yeah, let's go for that.
Jared Sten. Well, they say, I don't know if I'll finish this podcast or ever finish all of Babylon 5. I've just been listening to random episodes of this podcast to bring back memories from my high school days. But the Shadows and Vorlons always scared me, and when that storyline ended, my interest waned. I did catch the Call to Arms movie, and that was cool, but that was it for Babylon 5 and me. Maybe one day I'll watch the rest and listen to the rest of this podcast, but I get scared thinking about the Shadows in particular. It haunts me.
It vexes me. I shall have it. Hey, Jared, thank you so much for the review. Thank you for writing in. I love that you're just pulling out random episodes. Like,
right?
That's fun. Do it. Hey, consume the show however you want to consume the show. If you are listening to this, and I'm not sure that you ever will, considering that you sort of are stopped, can I really encourage you to keep going with the show? Because while I will maintain that the end of the Vorlon Shadow War, episode 6 of season 4, is
Into the Fire,
the best episode of the series to me, with one possible exception. And maybe it is still the best of the whole series.
might be.
There is so much more good to come out of this show than just that. I would also encourage you, when you get to season 5, I would encourage you to watch the whole thing. But if you have to, skip to episode 12 and go from there. But I really, really want to encourage you, go back and watch the rest of season 4, because there's some great TV after the Vorlon Shadow stuff ends. Like, and not just some, a lot. A lot. There is still a lot more to go with the show. Some of the, episode 2 of season 5, Jeff. Oh, don't skip that episode. Don't skip that. Make sure you watch that one. Phenomenal episode. Phenomenal. So good.
I will say, though, if the Vorlons and Shadows were scary for them, what comes next in season 4 might be even scarier, because that's super close to home.
Yeah.
Literally at home.
There it is. There it is. Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
We love our reviews, don't we?
We do.
We love
They're
our games
best.
like the Rule of Three. Another game that we like to play at the end of every episode is where we make a prediction about next week's episode based on title alone, never having seen the thumbnail, never having read a show description or anything like that. It's just a wild stab in the dark of a guess, right? Well, here at this point of the show is where we look back on last week and see what we predicted this week was going to be about. So Jeff, what did you say Racing the Night was going to be about, and how close do you think you were?
Racing the Night made me think of Racing Mars, and speaking of later season 4 episodes. And so I thought this was going to be an odd couple episode, and we'd see Matheson and Eilerson as the odd couple in this one. And Brent, no, that did not happen in this one at all. What did you think was going to happen?
Well, I thought that this was going to be kind of one of those where they had to accomplish some goal by morning, and if they didn't, otherwise it would be all for naught. I thought it was going to be a very literal episode title meaning, possibly even like a Day of the Dead type of sequel. Mm-hmm. Not at all what this episode was about. I was so far off.
We couldn't have gotten much further off in this one,
right.
But Brent, I'm sure there are people out there who are randomly listening to episodes of this, or who haven't watched Crusade ever, or at least not in a very long time. So they might have thought we got these super right. Why don't you set them straight and remind everybody what Racing the Night is all about?
Well, we open in what is clearly a flashback, or maybe it's a dream. Could it be a dream and a flashback? I don't know. I don't think my dreams have ever actually been a flashback, just sort of a twist on what maybe really happened. And I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm sure we'll find out at some point. But what's going on? There's some Earth Force suit, and they're in a meeting with the Drazi, a Berkiri, in a game, which would be the great start to any joke out there. By the way, you also would only know that that's the names of those aliens had you watched Babylon 5 prior to this. I'm just throwing that out there. It seems that they're negotiating the movement of the Excalibur across their respective spaces, and the aliens, they're not having it. Before long, we realize that we're actually watching this unfold through the eyes of Captain Gideon. You see, the aliens don't need these dirty humans spreading the disease across their space. After some exposition, which really just relates to us the premise of the show, talks to us about the captain and explains what the ship is, almost as if we've never heard of any of this before, they agree to allow the Excalibur and crew to move through their space for the next 4 years, with the agreement that if they haven't found the cure by then they will return to Earth and personally shoot out of the sky any ship trying to get out. They want this disease contained as doomsday approaches and people begin to panic. Well, that's when a chirping awakens a sleeping Gideon. So good. This was just a dream. He's needed, which is why anybody gets woken up out of the dead sleep at night. And that also means that we get a captain's log and a speeder bike ride flying through a city. Turns out they're on yet another dead planet where the population seems to have mysteriously disappeared without any sign of warfare. So how many does that make now? Well, in a scene that makes us feel like we're supposed to be the first time meeting Eilerson, he's been translating the text written on the walls. There are all kinds of equations for all sorts of cool stuff like transparent aluminum, transwarp, your grandma's chili recipe. Really, does that count? Anyway. Well, the truth is they're actually only half the equations, but Eilerson is just certain the other half are around here somewhere. He's just got to find them, because who doesn't, separate part of their equations from each other and hide them like it's a game? Well, Gideon clarifies for the audience, that's you and me, that the priority here is the cure, not the profit. Eilerson even tries to quote from the rules of acquisition, but Gideon isn't hearing it. I told you we're going to use them all.
I know, quick.
While the crew is busy puzzling out who these people were, what happened to them, or where they are now, Darina, our resident thief, who is explained to us by Dr. Chambers that that's what she is exploring a tunnel and comes across a light, which is some sort of power source. We're not really sure what. Later we'll find out it's a big generator. Also about this time, we see a red shirt get it. Well, what happened to him? He was vivisected. For those who don't know what that means, Dr. Chambers was nice enough to let us know that it means all his internal organs were removed. It's about that time Matheson calls down that they're detecting movement, and it isn't us. Dun, dun, dun! We're not alone! Gideon orders the evacuation of the team while he goes on a joyride on that speeder bike to act as a distraction while everybody else makes their getaway. It doesn't look good for Gideon as he's about to be captured when suddenly he's rescued by the never when you want him, but always when you need him, technomage Galen. Galen has a plan to figure out exactly what's going on down below. He's going to send down a holographic projection of himself to fool the people on the planet and see if he can't find their hideout. And before you know it, we're now in the movie Avatar, and it works, despite the really awful CGI and even worse acting by Galen, which actually means it was really, really great acting by Peter Woodward. They wind up seeing a graveyard of various alien race ships and another giant Matrix type of a place, which we've seen before. And turns out this is like basically cold storage for the people. And suddenly it all begins to fall into place. This race caught the plague. They put themselves into a deep freeze to stop death. And the machines are now experimenting on people to try to find the cure, cutting them open and stuff. This is all confirmed by a holographic transmission of the sole alien who is awake and confirms it all. Gideon is appalled that they would do anything like this to passersby, even setting them up with those half formulas to use as bait for keeping folks there long enough for them to be found. But the alien's like, yo, dude, we've got 10 billion people here. So what is it to kill 10, 1,000, 100, 10,000? Let me try that again. So what is it to kill 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people to find a cure? After all, Gideon, wouldn't you do the same? Eilerson's like, you bet you I would. Gideon's like, maybe not. The alien tries to strike a deal with Gideon. They'll keep doing what they do, and they'll share any info that they discover with Earth if Gideon will go out and send more alien species their way. And, of course, if they find any information, they should share it back with this alien group. Well, Eilerson thinks it's a great idea. I mean, after all, they, meaning the crew of the Excalibur, they're not the ones being completely awful. So they might as well at least benefit from the knowledge that's going to be gained. And then, taking a page straight out of Captain Janeway's book when she's playing around with the Vidians, he says, "No way, Jose!" And he blows the rest of the ships out of the sky. They beat it out of there, and later they're meeting up with an admiral type person who gives them a list of potential next stops because Gideon gets to choose wherever he wants to go. Gideon and Galen have a little chat about the nature of their problem. Is this a story of Job? Is this a test of faith? Who knows? Galen asked Gideon why they chose this planet to go to. After all, this wasn't actually one of the places that was on the list that the Rangers provided. Gideon says he has his sources, but he doesn't reveal that his source is a mysterious voice in a box. Jeff, when you watched this episode, what did you think of Racing the Night?
Well, most of what I thought about it, I can't say because, Brent, you've used all three of our references just in the recap.
I think you should take them all and combine that into one reference and we still get two.
Almost have to. I think, well, because there's a specific episode of
Voyager.
You can't say that. We're done. The third series of a
I see.
Original thing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm trying to play the game here.
Yeah. Nope. You're right.
There's a 2-part episode in that where there's two of the ships run into each other. One who approached it the like ethical, right way, and another one who's like, no, we're just going to straight kill aliens to get there faster.
I
And
believe that
this
was
Brent,
the finale of season 5 and the opening of season 6.
I think that's right. Yeah, 5 and 6. But this was that episode.
Well,
this was that 2-parter.
There was another episode of that exact same series where they met an alien doctor who basically was like he was a stand-in for like a doctor from Nazi Germany who had been experimenting on Jews and all the people and gained a lot of knowledge, but it was at the expense of really doing all this horrific stuff. And well, shouldn't we be able to use that knowledge? At least the knowledge is there. We should be able to take it. Or does that actually make you complicit by using that knowledge that was gained? You know, a similar story
also,
for sure too.
It's also a Mass Effect story. When you do Morden's loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2, Malin does some research on the genophage that it's the same thing. Well, we could get this and maybe save an entire species.
They called it the genophage.
Phage.
For the audio folks right now, you cannot see the smirk that is on my face at the word phage. That's not a reference. I didn't use it. They did.
They did. It's a Mass Effect reference, and we're not limited on those. So that's what I thought. This episode was literally done time and time again by Star Trek, by Mass Effect, by so many different sci-fi properties out there. But it was awesome. Like, I loved how they did so much of this. They started off with this being a mystery before it turned into every single sci-fi episode that we ever saw. But we got to see, you said it in the recap, Galen, what was incredible, absolutely incredible in this episode, in the worst but best way. In fact, if you put on one side of the scale Gideon in his leather jacket and sunglasses on a speeder bike, and you balance that with Galen and his homunculus and just Galen in general, they balance each other out. Like, it's great. But ultimately, this episode had nothing to do with the story at all. This was just here. They used this recycled story. I would be really blunt. This very recycled story to ask one massive question that we'll interrogate through our discussion of the episode, and I'm sure you'll talk about in messages, but how far are you willing to go? That's what this episode was. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. What did you think about it?
Honestly, Jeff, I don't know what to think of this episode.
Yeah.
I've seen in the comments, this is a favorite from a lot of the folks out there. For me, I don't know. I'm not saying I didn't like it. Not saying I didn't like it. I'm just saying this is an episode that to me feels like what JMS wanted the pilot to be. Okay. And I'd love for people out there to confirm, like, was this JMS's intended pilot? Because I believe our friend Nia, maybe some other people, I don't remember exactly who, told us that the way JMS originally wanted to start this show was kind of an in media race type thing, right? Like just pick it up right in the middle of what's going on in the action and go. This episode had all the hallmarks of a pilot episode. We got the background of how Gideon became the captain. What is the Excalibur? What's the mission? How are they going to get out there? We meet each character in turn and we learn something like the basic of each character. Here's Eilerson, who's this money grabbing guy who only cares about money, but you know, maybe there's there. Here's this scientist who actually turns out to be the doctor, but we don't know that yet. Here's the scientist lady. And then there's our resident thief and tunnel rat, Darina. And then there's our techno mage who only appears when you don't want him, but only appears when you do need him or something like that. Also, he can do all kinds of cool stuff. There's our Lieutenant Commander Matheson. We don't really know anything about him, but there's all of that. And then we're just reiterating, this is about finding the cure, finding the cure. We got to find the cure. We got to find the cure. Like, you know, we're introducing ourselves to everything. Hey, we're going to use the big gun. Well, we're going to be dead in the water for about 90 seconds afterwards. I know that. Let's go. I read the driver's manual. Like, everything about this episode to me felt like what a pilot episode would be like. again, this sets out the problem with the plague. It puts us face to face with a society. Like I love this part. It puts us face to face with a society that has already encountered the plague, and they choose a course of action which is very different to our own personal morals and characters and what our characters would have us do, right? It sets out we would do anything to find the cure, but I won't do that. It's more of what I said the other week, Jeff, about this testing again and again and again of the idea of, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? We're testing that idea, bumping up against that quite a bit. Do the needs of Earth outweigh others' needs? The other thing that I felt was this episode didn't feel like it came to a conclusion as much as it just sort of stopped. Like we were going, and then we're done. And I was like, wait, it just didn't feel like it came to an actual conclusion. Like they're having the conversation with the alien dude, and then they blew up a bunch of his ships and like, oh, well, we'll see each other again. Oh, maybe not, because I'm going to be dead in 6 months. Okay, well, let me turn my hologram off. And then that's it. Like, okay. I guess I just wasn't ready for it to be over yet. You know, like I needed to conclude. Have you ever listened to a song? Yeah, you've done that. I know you've done this, Mr. Musician. Have you ever listened to a song and the song doesn't have a resolving note?
Oh my God, it's the worst.
That's what this felt like to me. Like I know there's that little bit at the end, but it just wasn't a resolving note on the plot of the whole episode, you know? So I'm left feeling kind of frustrated by this episode, a little WTF, mate. Also, I have this thought too. If this was the intended pilot and I saw this episode first, I don't know that I would buy in and keep going. Not like I did with Warzone. And I know JMS didn't want to write Warzone. I know the studio kind of forced it on him. And this might be a case, and JMS, I'm so sorry to say this. I'm really so sorry to say this. This might be a case where the studio was right. I loved Warzone, pulled me in. Oh,
totally.
So, you know, it's not that I didn't like it. I'm kind of left wanting a lot out of this episode.
You make a good point on it. If it were the pilot, would it hook you? And I think this would hook me more if this were the pilot for a Star Trek series. Oh, look at these big questions we're gonna run into, and big moral quandaries. It's a very Star Trek thing, and I feel like it was built around that. But you're right; it's kind of like at the end it was like, oh, we're not really going to answer the question. We're just going to kind of dance around how we got here a little bit. But another thing you said that really resonated for me is I'm starting to feel like, even as I was writing my notes for this, a bit like a broken record on a couple of themes. Like, I think I've really enjoyed the series so far. In fact, at this point, we're past the halfway mark. Like, we're halfway through the entire series now, which is kind of mind-blowing and disappointing. But like, we've been hitting the same nail over. How far are you willing to go? Needs of the many versus the needs of the few. What are my ethics? Like, we've been hitting the same kind of points, and they're hitting them well. But you know what I mean? It just kind of feels, not only does the song not have a resolving note, it has too many verses, maybe.
Of the same words again. And it's trap rap is really what it is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of goes and goes.
But, but here's the thing. I think that question, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Is that a true statement? That is a question that is deserving of being continually asked and examined and done in many, many different ways. Unfortunately, we know that there's only 13 episodes, so it's going to feel very, this is what we got kind of a thing.
Yeah. Last note on being halfway over.
Yeah.
Still no Lockley.
Right.
Halfway through, no Lockley, and 18 words from Matheson. And most of them were in the last episode.
Here's the thing. It wouldn't shock me if you actually went and counted and that was a real number.
I should have. I might. I want to talk a little bit about that opening dream sequence.
Yeah.
Because there was some interesting stuff, I think, in there. They talked about Gideon being a gambler. Did you catch that whole?
Yeah, I bought that he was a gambler about as much as I did that Sheridan is a conspiracy theorist nut.
Right. For this episode, this time, this once.
Right.
He was,
I need it for this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. But the big thing I pulled out of that whole sequence is a drum I beat to death during season 5 of Babylon 5. The Interstellar Alliance, Brent, is not an alliance. It's a group of worlds and races that John Sheridan gets to tell what happens. And we saw that in action. They were all right. They're like, hey, we didn't get consulted. We get a say in this and no one asked us. So now we're going to try and interject ourselves. But that's all because Sheridan just said, this is what's going to happen. Not a good president. And I know it's not a popular thing to say, but objectively, I'm sorry. He's a great guy and very charismatic. I love John Sheridan, but not a good president.
You know, I want to say it was Game of Thrones that had a line that was similar to this. I'm going to mess it up some, but basically, it's easier to win the throne than it is to keep the throne or sit on the throne. Like, some people are better at winning the throne than they are at actually sitting on the throne, you know? And that may be true of Sheridan, you know?
I think so he's the Kurt Angle of Babylon 5.
Yes.
It's always fun to watch Kurt Angle chase the title, but once he got it, it's like,
yes.
I don't
Although,
care
Jeff, to be fair, now I'm going to speak completely about Americanism here.
Fair.
I think if we get to the end of any president's term or set of terms, if we knew the number of unilateral executive orders that particular president, I'm not even picking on one, I'm talking about all of them, the number of unilateral executive orders that president just says, this is what's going to happen, we would probably be appalled.
Yes and no. So one, the actual executive orders get numbered. You can see how many there were. But I think very rarely does a president in a vacuum issue an executive order. They're consulting with their cabinet. They're talking to, interested party. Like there's more than the president and his wife in an office saying, well, let's do this. I think this sounds good. But this isn't a Babylon 5 episode. This is a Crusade episode.
It is a Crusade episode. It is very true.
We should get back to the Crusade stuff. I caught one line that I thought was really brilliantly placed in that flashback sequence. Gideon and the crew of the Excalibur. This was from that whole scene was just like straight out of a late 90s CD-ROM video game where it's like your perspective and like they're telling you all this stuff.
Right.
So
he looks in the window and he sees his reflection in the window. Yeah.
It's it's perfect. Yeah. But he's talking to his commanding officer or whoever, the Earth Force guy. And he says, Gideon, you and the crew of this ship are the last best hope.
He said the thing.
For Earth.
He said the thing.
Said it. that whole sequence was literally just like, hey, hi, we're Babylon 5. Babylon 5, we're still that right here. Don't forget us. Don't forget us.
So let me ask you a question. It felt to me watching this that this was if this was the pilot, this is how Gideon started his command of the Excalibur. They talk about, we picked him, we did this. This is him becoming the new captain. And here's what the Excalibur is and all this sort of stuff. Is that actually how Gideon became the captain? Like, does that actually contradict what we saw in Warzone, or does Warzone contradict what was said here? Because I feel like it does. It may not. But I feel like it kind of does. Either way, this isn't exactly how we saw it happen. Like, we didn't see anything about him making a bet with somebody and, losing their shirt on a bluff or something like that. Will you go with me? Because I had this kind of thought.
Yeah.
If this is a this was like JMS's original idea of how it was to go, and then later he writes Warzone, and turns out it wouldn't happen a different way, right? Which we understand that stuff like that happened with this show, lots of studio interference and stuff, right? It would occur to me, and I think I might have said this in my recap, like, I have never once in my life had a dream that was an exact memory replay of a real event that happened.
Yeah, you've also never been on a TV show.
You don't know that.
So, well, never been a character on a TV show.
You don't know that.
Pretty confident.
I almost was once.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
Might be in the future.
Dude, that'd be awesome. I'd be all for
Right.
it. I'd be all for it. So, but here's the thing. Even if this was just a dream, it does not necessarily mean that is how he became captain.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, because dreams don't really dictate or reflect real life. Just the thing.
It's possible, because I think in Warzone they just said you've had more first contacts than anybody else, and you do what it needs to get done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think in this one it's just, hey, you were handpicked by Sheridan. Like, I think that's really all it said, but seemed like there was some other stuff in there that we've.
Yeah, they added we all know Gideon's resume. He's had more battles in peacetime than most do during a war.
Right.
Then they slip in the gambler line that didn't fit.
Right.
I had to go back a couple of times and be like, what are they even trying to say here?
Well, it gave the Drazi a chance to come up and be like, okay, since you like gambling, Mr. Gambler dude, how about this? Yeah, it gave way to rise that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I thought the Drazi's request of, look, you can go for 4 years, but at year 5, if you haven't found that cure yet, you're back home and you're blasting your own people out of the sky if they try to leave. I thought that was very reasonable and made a lot of sense.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Also, there's no way Gideon should agree to do it, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, not his place to make that commitment at all. But yeah, it makes contain the plague.
Yeah. Because he's right. The closer you get to Doomsday, the more people will panic. And we don't need your junk getting out into the universe.
Right. They're on month 1 of 60.
Yeah.
And they're already rioting and have death cults going on.
Let's just face it, you guys wouldn't be wearing a mask when you come off that thing.
Right? Well, they might. It might be one of those plastic ones that squirts nanobites into their lungs.
Oh, I see.
You talked about Eilerson being introduced.
Yeah.
In A Call to Arms, I forget the character's name, but the IPX lady who was kind of became the villain behind it. Like, she was really just like, hi, I'm evil corporate lady. Like, I want to be profitable and I want all those things. I got a lot more of that in Eilerson in this one than we have in the other episodes, which really supports your theory around the pilot. But it made me wonder, knowing that this was meant to be a 5-year story that JMS was telling, if that was one of the themes he wanted to really dive into, was just the evils of corporations versus like medical and scientific advancements. You know, what are we not enjoying from a medical standpoint because it's just not profitable?
I got to tell you, you and I have both talked about Eilerson and how we have problems with his character. We have problems with him. And it really may be the actor and less the character. In some, at least I've said that. I don't know if you've said that. I've certainly said that. I don't love the way this guy acts the part.
Yeah.
Acts the part. I think I know who would make a much better Eilerson.
Who's that?
Ed Begley Jr.
Oh my gosh. I could see that.
Listen, because Ed Begley Jr. has played this role. He's the guy who gets the technology from a future or from a civilization he has no business getting it from, and then turning a big profit and kind of becoming the evil genius Elon Musk of his day. You know, he plays that guy really well, and it feels like that's who this guy could be.
Because I think part of what Max is supposed to bring is just that sliminess, and Ed can totally bring that as well. That's a good call. I like that.
And he, listen, he says good business is good for everyone. By the way, that's a great business line. And that's true. Good business is good for everyone because it's good for you as a company. It's good for your employees. It's good for your shareholders, and it's good for your customers. And it's good for your customers too. Like,
exactly.
You do it right.
I think there's a concept in business today called conscious capitalism. And there are some companies, Whole Foods used to be one of them, another part of the Amazon umbrella, but Patagonia was one, I think Costco, but these are companies that like they're driving to make a profit. They're clearly a capitalist company, but they want to do so in ways that enrich communities and serve underrepresented businesses and suppliers and things like that. Ones that understand that they have an obligation beyond the bottom line. And those companies tend to be very, very successful because, like you said, good business is good for everyone.
I would support good businesses. You know, I certainly, if it's a bit, I believe in their mission and what they do and how they work, I'm going to go to them more than I am other people. I will.
Yeah. And oftentimes you'll probably pay a few more bucks for it and you do so happily because, you know, it's going to make a good difference. Not always happily, but sometimes happily.
He also later says it's all about profit, and I'm going to ride the coattails of a reference I made earlier. So this is not a new one.
Okay.
He totally sounds like a Ferengi.
Yeah.
Totally.
You said it. You quoted the rules of acquisition almost word for word.
Right. So we see Gideon flying through the city on a speeder bike. We have unlimited Star Wars references, right?
We do.
Okay,
we do.
I think we work one or two in just about every other episode. You know,
every now and again we get something in. We're gonna get a lot more in.
But man, he's flying through this. Now listen, again, I'm assuming this was meant to be episode 1, and we're 6 episodes into it now. Where's that speeder bike in these other episodes?
Right.
I want to see that thing, man, because that thing looks cool.
It's not in later episodes because it got blowed up.
They just use the vehicle replicator, make a new one. That's science, right? Everybody has that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the equations that Eilerson found, but you know, the keystone equation that everything is related to apparently is still hidden. But that scene, and honestly, a lot of the scenes in this episode, they relied really heavily on CG in this episode, and to this episode's detriment. It looked really bad.
It wasn't good. No. Bad green screen work, I mean, fully animated Galen that looked like he belonged in an N64 at best.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I loved it. I mean, it was so bad, but like for what it was trying to communicate, I thought was so good.
You know what really sold it for me though? He looked awful, but what really sold it for me was how over the top Galen was acting that part. Oh no, look, where did I leave that shuttle? I could have sworn it was around here somewhere. Man, I hope nobody shows up to do anything bad to me. Oh, look, this person has shown up to do bad things to me. No, stop. Ow. Ooh. There's my liver. I wonder where it went.
Yeah, yep.
I wonder where I put that.
I love that line in the, oh, the indignity of it.
Right? Oh, the indignity. His
so
homunculus. Jeff, I need to start working this word into my everyday vocabulary. Just find a way to use it. Homunculus. Oh, it's great.
I used it twice in meetings today.
Did you really?
Actually at work? I did. So I just happened to have 2 meetings where most of the people were in a room meeting and I was up on the Teams board, the face, and I just said, I'm sorry I can't be there in person, so I've sent my homunculus via this Teams board to be there with you, and literally went over like this. Now the audio listeners aren't going to see it, so just imagine what I'm doing. They just turn to the board and they're like,
for the audio listeners out there, Jeff has his eyebrows cocked at 2 different angles and his mouth slightly open, looking in a very puzzled manner.
Yeah, it didn't go over well. They didn't quite get it. I thought it was great though.
Jeff, I want to back up just for a minute to the speed racer scene where Gideon's flying around and he's being chased. I know what would have made that scene 100 times better.
A soundtrack?
Please listen. Our friend Adzi did this a couple weeks ago when I asked for Galen entering into the theme of the Imperial March. Here's what I need somebody to take that scene of Gideon flying through the city where he's being chased.
Highway to the Danger Zone?
No. Put the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack behind that.
Axel F?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That whatever the name of that song is, it's at the beginning of all 4 of those movies. He's running through the city, driving around. And it's that put that theme song to it, and it will elevate that scene 100-fold. So good.
We'll see.
So good.
I'd go with the Top Gun look on this one. Just, I mean, because they had him with his shades. I mean, I just wait. I feel the need for Gideon speed. It's ridiculous. I just that whole idea was too much.
Also, can we please put some side mirrors on those speeder bikes? Like the man's flying and he has to look over his shoulder to see what's going on. Like, no, give him some mirrors, man.
You ever driven a motorcycle before and tried to look all the way over your shoulder?
You're crashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, Galen getting vivisected, and the other guy did also. It made me wonder, on top of the reference that you used, which was beautiful because I have it in my notes as well, from a certain race, from a certain show. But it also hit me that that's the same way the Centauri, that's how Kartaji was going to kill Jakar.
Right.
Does JMS have a thing for vivisection?
I don't know. I put those two pieces. I couldn't remember where we heard it in Babylon 5, because I remember when we watched Babylon 5, I didn't know what vivisection was. I'm watching it here and I went, I know what that is. And then Dr. Chambers explained it for us once again. And I was like, I was right. I remembered what that was.
Like, I can learn. It's so good.
I can be taught.
There was an ongoing kind of theme storyline between Galen and Dorina.
Yes. Yes. Galen walks in sitting on a subway, which, by the way, looks just like the set that we had with Bester and Garibaldi back on Mars. It looked like the exact, like, just pull that out of mothballs and stick it right here.
Just take the little posters off for the Red Planet Hotel or whatever.
Right. And basically, like, he's trying to avoid her eye contact. Like this is his ex-girlfriend or something. Like, he's like, no, the answer is still no. And I literally said, well, what was the question? He's like, you're not ready to become a technomage or whatever his answer was. Like, oh, okay. Thank you for answering the question for me. Dorina wants to be a technomage.
Or at least learn their ways.
Yes. For revenge against the Drakh.
Yep.
And Galen says, nah, you're not ready yet.
We've talked a lot on this podcast and Stargate podcast on the idea of justice versus revenge. And I think, and I don't know her name, but the actor who plays Dorina did an incredible job in that scene. Like when Galen kind of rejected the need for revenge, the look on her face was like she couldn't believe. And it wasn't like, I can't believe you don't want revenge. It was, I can't believe you don't want the logical thing to do in this situation. Like she couldn't imagine anything other than revenge. I thought that was a really well executed scene, and it added so much to her character just in that little moment. Not just that she wanted to know the technomage stuff, but the fury that she has towards the Drakh.
I mean, but I love the whole, listen, you're not ready to do this. You're not ready to become this. I can't teach this to you yet. When you realize that this is not the way to go, then maybe you'll be ready. But I love this. And this comes at the very end. She looks at him and he's like, yeah, you're not there yet. You're not there. You're not there yet. And she looks up and she goes, so you're telling me there's a chance.
Right.
Or but she said, so you're telling me there's hope. And he goes, there's always hope. It's like, oh, pardon me while I write something down.
Another theme that we've been hearing throughout the series. Right. But she did a thing in this whole little theme that I thought was inexcusable, and that Gideon should have been all over her about. Is they're debriefing their time on the planet, and she starts talking about the skulls that she found of all the different races, and then this big generator with all these cryo-frozen, and he was like, why didn't you bring this up? And she's like, well, because whatever Galen just said here. If I was Gideon, I would have been all over that. I don't care what petty dispute you have with this technomage. This is critical information. You pull something like this again, you're off this ship. That was.
But she had a great defense. Like, look, this didn't happen until after all this other stuff happened, so it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. We were kind of moving. We were kind of moving at light speed. I didn't have a chance to tell you.
Well, I don't think it mattered on the planet, but when they were debriefing it, that should have been the first thing. Hey, I found this. When I was out crawling around everybody, I found this is probably important for the stuff.
Maybe
you're
if they would shut up and let her talk, she would have.
That's fair. That's fair. Hey, military talking over here. Like, just watch yourself.
Right, right. So down on the planet, we have Galen's homunculus. He gets vivisected. His head gets chopped off. Yeah. They find the alien spaceship. Mm-hmm. Did you back it up at all and look for any other sci-fi series ships that were in there?
I did not.
Go try it, because while it's not exact, there are several in there that I'd sit there and go, that looks like a Battlestar Galactica. That looks like an Enterprise. That looks like a like I felt like I could see some other ships in there. That
I did catch a couple local B5 ones. I was like, oh, that looks like a Drazi ship. That's the Vree. Looks like a flying saucer. But I don't look for anything outside of B5.
My guess is they're all supposed to actually be B5 universe ships. Maybe. And not like let's throw this in as a dig or a punch at them. Like,
that'd be fun if they did that though.
But we get in there and we realize we're in cold storage. We're in the Matrix again. How many times are we going to see all of the people plugged into the wall? Because we saw this back in Call to Arms as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we've seen it here. I feel like we've seen it in at least one other episode. Like, come on,
every species apparently has that technology except us.
Yes. Well, we have it, but it's reserved for only people like Walt Disney and those folks. Okay, can we talk about this though? Oh, I'm sorry. That thing, 5 miles below the surface?
Yeah.
You know how far 5 miles below the surface is? That is deep.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what kind of pressure you're dealing with at that point?
Exactly.
There's a lot. Some of those thoughts, the science thoughts, I was going, oh, wait a minute. That's
a lot of rock. That's a lot of gravity.
Right.
Getting sucked in right there.
Right. Okay, let's play a game, Jeff. We like our games. Let's play a game.
We do.
I want you to, this is going to be cool or not cool. Who did it better, Babylon 5 or Crusade?
Okay.
Today's edition. You ready?
All right.
The Starfury launch.
Babylon 5.
I don't know. The stick coming down with a whole bunch of them attached, kind of all sitting in different situations and going.
What I liked about it was,
man,
it was the stick, and the stick rotated.
Yeah.
Like it still did the throw it off kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That was cool. Although I got to tell you, watching the door on Babylon 5, watching the doors open and them just being flung out into space, it looked like they were being dropped. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I love that one.
I might agree with you. I think Babylon 5 might have done it better, but still, the Starfury, we got a Starfury launch, Jeff.
We got a Starfury launch. We got a space battle.
Yeah. Cool episode.
Which also Babylon 5 did better.
You know, for a show
but
that's coming post Babylon 5, as good as stuff looked, and at the end of Babylon 5, this stuff looked very season 1, season 2 Babylon 5.
In A Call to Arms, they started using a new jump gate style.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that would carry over.
Yeah.
Like, they just had a different feel to a lot of the CG, and some of it was really good. But yeah, to your point, it was not. I mean, it was good. It was a good space battle. I enjoyed watching it, but in fact, if I had to sum up this entire episode, maybe I need to go redo my opening thoughts. This isn't a Star Trek episode. It is a late 90s CD-ROM video game. With the intro to the space battle.
I like
solving the mystery.
I like the enemy ship flying right in front of the Excalibur just as the Excalibur is about ready to launch its weapon.
I know.
I was like,
what was that?
Why are you going in that direction? Like, how about
It's
you
little tiny
don't
drone.
fly right in front of them when they're doing that?
Yeah. Little tiny drone. I got it. I'll get you. Don't worry. Yeah, that thing's blowing right through you.
Right? Oh my gosh.
I didn't understand that though. So what it looked like to me was the Starfuries kind of blew up 5 miles worth of the planet to expose that core. And then they main gunned the core to blow everything up. But then dude, Kulan, still alive and just holograms himself. Like that whole main gun blast did nothing.
See, here's the thing. I'm not sure because the main gun blast to me just destroyed the ships that were in outer space. Didn't actually hit the planet. I didn't get that they were doing anything down on the planet and destroying the folks down there. Like he kind of left. I mean, because Gideon left them alive. He didn't turn around and kill them.
That's what I thought.
You know, no, because he said to the guy, he's like, no, listen, we're going to do this a different way. We're going to go find the cure. And if we find it, we'll come back and we'll give it to you free of charge because we're good human beings. So he had to have left him alive, right? Like, but to that said, Jeff, you often watch stuff and pick up on it the first watch that I don't. It takes me multiple watches to go back and see it. So maybe you're right and I'm completely wrong. I just didn't catch that's what happened.
Just didn't. The scene didn't make sense. I wasn't sure what was going on. And like, I don't know, they would use the main gun against there were little drones flying around. Like they weren't big old capital ships, you know. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense.
So I want to skip to the end here with Galen just for a second. And then I want to come back to the conversation that we had with the guy. Cause I think that'll wrap this piece up. When they're doing the denouement of the episode and everything and Galen's leaving, he's in the elevator with Dorina yet again. And he gives her there's hope. There's always hope. You can do this. And the door opens and he says to Dorina, she's like, will you be back or will I see you? He's like, oh, I will be back in the fullness of time. Expect me when you see me. Literally, my note is, all right, Gandalf.
Oh.
It's a direct lift from Lord of the Rings. And we know JMS likes to lift his Lord of the Rings references.
And to back that up, my note was, all right, Jakar. Because Jakar said the same thing. Because it was a Gandalf reference. I also loved it because in the fullness of time, that's from something. That's not a thing people, I think, say. It's from a Rush song. I know that. The Garden, actually, from their 2012 record Clockwork Angels, which is the perfect track to end their career on. But I wanted to believe it was a preemptive Rush reference by JMS.
It's a biblical reference, too.
Fullness of time?
In the fullness of time it talks about when Mary being pregnant, ready to birth the baby Jesus. When the fullness of time that when the fullness of time had come, he came into the world.
Okay.
Like and I say that just knowing JMS often puts little references like that into the script. I prefer to think of it more as a Rush reference though.
Yeah. Although 100% I could see Galen being like, yeah, I'm totally the Messiah. So I will be here in the fullness of time.
Right.
Pretty on brand for him.
Well, you know, I mean, Gandalf kind of felt like he was the Messiah as well, right? Like he could just kind of.
Well, he did come back.
Yeah.
So
he was resurrected. That is for sure. That is for sure.
So then Kulan comes on hologram and we have the big exposition dump of everything.
Which basically they figured out what it was and then he just confirmed it. It was like, yep, we're a bunch of dip poops.
Yep. Dippos.
Yeah. They have sacrificed themselves over 500 times. Every 2 years, one of their people wake up and it's their duty to maintain the machines and see what happens. And when they die, somebody else wakes up and he's got.
I found it interesting though. So my understanding was that they have a 5-year window on Earth because what I learned in the Legions of Fire book was the plague was originally engineered for the Minbari. So
I thought you said it was originally engineered for the Centauri.
Minbari, because the Drakh were on on Centauri Prime
Okay.
during all this. And they wanted revenge. They wanted Sheridan and Delenn. They wanted the humans and Minbari. So they were going to planet eater Earth, and they were going to plague Minbar. And that's where the 5 years comes from. It's going to take about 5 years for it to adapt to human physiology.
Right.
But also with these people, it took 5 years. So am I to believe then it's going to take 5 years to adapt and then 5 years for everyone to die?
Well, not just 5 years, but it took 5 years 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
1,000 years ago, the Minbari were a baby race.
Well, I imagine what I headcanon for myself was they have like this plague, the shadow plague.
Yeah.
And then they kind of adapt it to a species. So in this case, shadows came 1,000 years ago. We're going to put a base on your planet. And they're like, no, you're not. And they're like, oh, well, instead of just, because you're pre-flight, instead of just making a base on your planet because we can, like we did to the Narn, instead of that, we're going to shower you with this plague that we've now engineered specifically to kill you.
And later, the Drakh, being the minions, figured out how to do that, and they started applying it for the Minbari, and then eventually applied it to the human. Well, they started applying it for the Minbari, knowing that it would also hit the humans in a few years. But it just oddly also would take a very specific 5 years.
Yeah,
Like, he's like, I've got 6 months left to live. I'm like, wait a minute. It's that specific? Like, you can,
and after 3 years, he looked good.
You can put on a calendar when you're going to expire.
I think that's a Babylon 5 thing, right? Sheridan, they knew the day, the Sunday he was going to take off. These people knew exactly when they were going to go. And for 3 months sick, or 4.5 years sick, dude looked good.
Yeah.
Standing up, clear spoken, really good looking beard. Like, I don't see the downside to this plague. Like, oh, so you're telling me I'm going to know exactly when I'm going to die, and that's the thing? Cool.
Die young, make a pretty corpse.
From.
There you go.
Exactly.
But you have the question. Wouldn't you sacrifice 10 people to save your planet of 10 billion? Well, wouldn't you do it for 100 then? How about 1,000? Why not 10,000?
Yeah.
Where does it end? When does the cost for 10 billion become too much?
At what point?
Because
and honestly, if it's not one, you know what I mean? It's like anything more than, I don't know, it's hard math to do. And there's layers to that math that Eilerson brought in. Would you kill 100 Narns? Not even your own people, but Narns to save Earth. And what I noted in that moment, Eilerson was passionate about it, right? He's like, we got to take advantage of this. We're not the ones doing the bad thing. This is good. Wouldn't you kill 100 Narns? Gideon did not answer him. He just kind of like paused, looked away, and changed the subject. I think Gideon is willing to go a lot farther than the Gideon we see today thinks he is.
I think that's very true. Because he says he would go as far as can. By the way, I just did the math on it. 100,000 people against 10 billion is 1/100,000th of a percent.
So statistically, none.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, that's scary calculus, man, because this is the kind of math, like here we are on this podcast doing the math to genocide people and justify it with numbers. It's statistically zero. Yeah. I mean, it's really not that big of a thing.
Right.
Holy crud.
Yeah.
It's a huge
100,000 people to try to find a cure.
Oh my God. I think it was Eilerson. I could be wrong though. I didn't write down who said this thing, but it was a great question. And it might be the question to transition us even into our next part of the episode. But where do you put your faith? Somebody asked Gideon.
That was Galen and Gideon.
That was Galen.
They're talking about, well, is this really just the story of Job? Aren't we all really the story of Job? Is this just a test of our faith?
And where do you put it? I thought that was interesting. And then Gideon was like,
I'll tell
I don't
you
know
where to put it. Sorry. What?
Yeah. You can shove that bitch sideways and shove it right up. It's a different. That's
wow.
A rock reference.
You went there.
Yeah. Well, it worked really well for Dwayne Johnson, so I thought maybe I'd give it a go. We close the episode with the zombie box once again.
No new information.
Hopefully we figure that.
It's telling Gideon a few weird things, and he's like, "Oh well, I guess that didn't work out. Try this other place."
Next thing, and on that, Brent, we've been talking about a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
What messages did you find here in Racing the Night?
Well, we've talked about a few already. There's always hope. Now, let's be fair. In the context that it was used in this particular case, that's not as cool as it actually sounds. And here he's literally talking about, so you're telling me there's a chance that I could do this thing. That's really what he was saying. But the phrase, there's always hope. You're telling me there's hope? Yeah, there's always hope. Yeah, that's true. I love his phrase. He says, there's always hope because that's only because no one has figured out how to kill it yet. Oh, so good. So good. You can keep hope alive. Jeff, how many times have we seen an episode of any sci-fi show? I feel like we've seen this recently in Stargate. I could be wrong. But where the whole point is you have to kill their hope, kill their desire, kill those things, take away their hope, and then you can control them. Prodigy. This was a whole thing about Prodigy and the kids in Prodigy. If you take away their hope that they can escape, take away their hope that they can do this, then you've got them. You got to kill the hope. But hope is the one thing. And how many times have we seen when you get to the end, like, this is the thing that separates humanity from the aliens out there. This is what makes us different. This is what kind of, in other words, defines what humanity is. The fact that we have this eternal sense of hope that things can be better. Things can be better in the future. Things could be better right now. We can be the ones who make that hope happen.
I mean, literally, that was why they brought Braytac into Crusade, was to deliver that message.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also, I think, a real big discussion of, so you have knowledge that is clearly beneficial and clearly will help, but it was gained through immoral and ill-gotten means. Is it okay to use that knowledge? The knowledge is there. It exists. We now have it. If you don't use it, do all those people die in vain? Or if you do use it, do you sort of co-sign the manner in which those people had to suffer in order to gain it? And it's a good discussion. This episode didn't discuss it. It didn't dive into it, but it posed the question. How often have we seen, particularly an episode of Stargate, where they pose a question and then they do nothing with it? You know?
Yeah, it's the thing. And it's both super frustrating and super great at the same time.
But I think this really comes down to, I've said before and I'll say it again, this show as a whole is this examination of, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Right? And I think one thing that this shows us as a caveat, as a piece of that, is the truth, the mirror to society of how often people will use this idea of the needs of, it's better for the many, to justify intolerable actions against the few. Look, it's better for all of these people if we do this, even if it inconveniences or kills this 100,000 over here. And that's not okay. Yeah,
no,
they're a statistically 0% chance, percent part of all of this. But this is one of the things, Jeff, as a Star Trek guy, that I love the message. Like, we value all life. Why? Because it's life. We value, like, this is a philosophy I carry it with me in my everyday life. Great book I've been reading recently. It's very faith oriented, but it's called Everybody Always by Bob Goff. Fantastic book. But the basic premise is, what's our job? It's to love everybody always. Well, what about those? Everybody always. Well, what about when they piss you off? Everybody always. We love them all. Why? Because they're alive, because they're life. We respect them. We honor them because of that.
it really makes me think the math on that, right? We can call 100,000 people statistically zero.
Yeah.
But the math, what that says is it's statistically zero, but one is too many.
Yeah.
Because one is life.
Yeah. If those people come willingly, fine. But to take them without being willing is pretty awful.
Fully informed and willingly.
Yeah. Now, the part of the question that I think hasn't really fully been answered is, so those 100,000 people die. We now have the knowledge. Is it okay to use that knowledge? Some people would say no, some people would say yes. And I think the show didn't debate it, so I don't know that we're really going to debate it here. And I'm not here to pass judgment because, frankly, I don't know. But you know what I know good sci-fi does so often is it poses a question and it doesn't answer it. And it lets you have to chew on it. So I'm not going to answer it very much here because the show didn't, but it is a thing I think to really answer. Does it mean that those people's lives went to waste? Or does it mean that you're complicit with the actions of what's going on? I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer to that. I feel like I should. I feel like I should know my stance on that. And the truth is I don't. So,
it makes me, again, so many things make me so eager for you to dive into Mass Effect. And this is one of them because you have to make that decision in the second game. You have to decide, and it has impacts. Like things happen. And it's interesting because those impacts happen in the third game, but depending on which way you went, the story provides justification for the choice that you made. It's interesting. Like there's not a right answer. I mean, there is, but there's not, and we're not going to know it. Like that's math done on a whole different level, I think.
So those are the messages that I found, that I kind of dug out of this whole shindig, this whole episode. Jeff, I'm looking for messages this week. You, my friend, get to rank this episode. You get to put it into our 100% completely accurate, absolute, definitive, immutable ranking of Crusade. Now, our current top 5 as it sits right now, number 5 is, this is going to push somebody out of the top 5, Jeff.
Yeah, first time.
We're going to push somebody out of the top 5. The number 5 episode is Memory of War, or it could, I don't know, this could wind up number 6. So whatever. Memory of War is number 5. Number 4, our episode from last week, Appearances and Other Deceits. Number 3, Warzone, our pilot episode that we liked a whole lot. 2, The Needs of Earth. I'm sorry, Needs of Earth was last week. Appearances and Other Deceits were 2 weeks ago. And then our number 1 episode currently right now is The Long Road. Jeff, don't do me dirty. Where are you placing in this ranking Racing the Night?
I feel like there's only one place to put this that would be doing you dirty, and I'm not going to do you dirty. This will be a top 5 episode. And I think what I'm going to do, and it's tough. I'm really torn on where it's going to sit. But there's one scene in the episode I'm going to put above it that, in my opinion, kind of pushes it over. And I'll tell you, the 2 scenes I'm pitting against each other are the Galen homunculus scene, which is great, and Kevin, the fashionista, sitting next to Matheson.
Yeah.
And solving the problem of what lines mean.
Yeah.
And those are both amazing scenes, but Brent, Kevin sitting there and figuring stuff out was amazing.
Yeah.
It was such a great message. It was fun to watch. It made so much sense. It made the entire episode. This is going to be our new number 5.
Yeah. Him figuring that out, it justified his presence in the entire episode for what should have just been written off as a comedic laugh that today would play joke. Really poorly.
Yeah.
But it justified it being there.
Instead, it was perfect.
Made it perfect all the way through. I think that's a great spot to put it. This is not better than Memory of War, this is much better than Memory of War, but I think this is in the right spot. Good job, Jeff. I would agree.
Thanks.
Concur.
Appreciate that. Well, Brent, that does it now for Racing the Night. Next week, we're watching Next week, we're watching an episode called Visitors from Down the Street for the first time. We've never seen these episodes before. We don't know anything about them. And we love playing this game where we guess what the next episode is going to be based on the title alone. So, Brent, what do you think Visitors from Down the Street is going to be about?
Visitors from Down the Street? That's the name of the episode?
It is.
Okay, so a title like that calls to mind something that I literally just watched the other day with my daughter. I watched an episode of Strange New Worlds titled Those Old Scientists. And it's a crossover episode from the animated Lower Decks with the live action Strange New Worlds. And what certainly was funny, because if you're going to throw the Lower Decks folks in there, it's going to be funny. But for whatever reason, that's the Visitors from Down the Street. It has that sort of a feel. So I'm going to say this is a comedy episode. We're going to get Lockley and possibly at least one other, if not more. And I'm not just talking Corwin, I'm talking like DVD cover folk. People from Babylon 5. The really? Visitors from Down the Street. It's where we're going to bring in the Babylon 5 folk into Crusade, but I think it's going to be a comedy episode. But at least Lockley. Okay. We're going to get Lockley, at least her, possibly at least one other, but it'll be a comedy episode.
All right.
How about you?
It's interesting. It makes you think of another episode of a show. It makes me think of one. A Twilight Zone episode, maybe my favorite Twilight Zone episode. The monsters are due on Maple Street.
Okay.
And that's, have you ever seen it before?
No.
Oh my God, Brent, you have to watch it.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's even the original, like they've redone it, in a couple of the iterations of Twilight Zone, but the original one is still done to perfection. But the gist is these aliens come down and start sowing just little rumors and bits of discontent in this neighborhood, and it causes the entire neighborhood to turn in on itself because we're paranoid people and are quick to not trust. And so what I think this one is going to be kind of riffed on that. I think this is going to play off of Matheson in a way. I keep saying that. I just want more Matheson, but it's going to be because there's going to be
You're going to manifest a Matheson episode eventually, Jeff.
You know what? It worked so well with the telepath war.
Hey, we still have a few more. We have a few more episodes. There's still hope. There's always hope, Jeffrey. There's always hope.
There's always hope. You're saying there's a chance. But there's going to be some telepath thing from Matheson that's basically going to infect the crew. They're all going to start getting paranoid, almost to Naked Now.
I was going to say, I feel like I've heard this episode before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Many of these are rehashed plots, but I think this is going to be the kind of, a psychosis on the ship, and they start turning on each other, and the visitors from down the street are just them, and the paranoia that comes from all that. And we'll find out right here next week. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching us. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, and please share this podcast, share this show with somebody that loves Babylon 5 and Crusade, or just needs to watch it for the very first time. So until next time,
Jeff.
Yeah, Brent, what's up?
Hey, when I know we've got some busy schedules coming up. When do you think when am I going to see you again? When are we going to have our next episode?
Well, it'll be in the fullness of time. Expect me when you see me.
Okay, well, I'm going on an adventure.
Oh, but one does not simply walk into Mordor.
Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
Yeah, all that is for us to decide what to do with the time we're given.
Well, we've had first breakfast, yes. But what about second breakfast? 11sies, lunch, tea, supper, dinner?
You shall not pass!
Where are you going?
I don't know.
We're so dumb.
We are. It was
so
great.
dumb.
It's so fun.
You know, I stand by what I said at the beginning. This will be one of my favorite outros. I don't know that it hit exactly the way I thought it would in my mind, but it's still, I think, is going to be one of my favorite outros.
It's still super good. Thanks for sticking with me. I had some pretty awkward tongue moments.
You know, there was a piece of me that kept like, do you need me to take any of these pieces for you? Like, I'm happy to do that, but you were powering through. I was proud of you. I was going to let you go.
I'm a trooper.
You guys don't understand how much pain Jeff has been in over the last few days. Like, the text messages I've received have been, I feel bad for you, dude.
Yeah, it's not been great. It has not been great.
Yeah, because that was what the doctor told you. Is like, hey, this will be real quick. I'll be, you know, it's not even going to take 15 minutes. I'll be in there, but it's going to hurt like a son of a bitch.
Yep. Yeah. He's like, this is going to hurt a lot for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. How's your pain level right now, Jeff?
It's pretty low, actually.
Because you're about, what, 2 days out of surgery right now? 2-3 days?
What is today? Say
Wednesday.
It's I had it on Monday morning. So yeah. But I'm very aware of it, but the pain isn't too bad, but it's definitely like there.
You just feel it.
But
so like, do you have like,
there's stitches?
Oh yeah. Stitches. Yeah.
And I can feel them, which is really awkward and it's swollen a little bit and doesn't move quite right. But when he was going over it, I was like, what do I do for food? Like, what's that look like? And he's like, oh, you're not going to do that for a day. Like, you'll be fine after a day for food. And I have to eat on one side of my mouth and it's a little awkward. Yeah. But I told him, hey, I've got these podcasts that I do and I love doing them and we're on a schedule. And he's like, well, might not be a bad idea to bank one or two of those to be ready. And as you can see, if you're Council Chambers and with us right now, we chose not to do that.
No, well, to be fair, you texted me over the weekend prior to your surgery and was like, hey, you want to go ahead and do this next one. And something was going on this weekend. Like, I didn't even, like, I think I saw it and then it got buried and I didn't even respond to you till like the next day or 2 days later, which is not like me normally. But I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh shoot, we were supposed to do that with Jeff.
We could have done it, but
yeah.
I appreciate and it's fun, you know. It'll be memorialized now for Jeff's whole thing that was going on.
There you go. Hey, let's check in with our council chambers here. Club 65. Welcome to Club 65. If you guys have never been here before, we'll explain it. We don't do this all the time, but Club 65 is our after show. It's our after party. Basically, you're not somebody who dipped out when Jeff and I started the outro. You stayed all the way through the end. And now you're officially a Club 65 member. And the only way that you become a member is by doing what you're doing right now, which is hanging out with us to the bitter end when the show gets really dumb and stupid. But you know what has made this section, in my mind, so much better? Our council chambers folks who have been commenting throughout the episode, and we get to go back and catch up with their comments of what they've been saying. So
for real. One I want to pull up, Nia talks about what we were talking about on this one. We had the debate on Discord earlier that this was intended to be the first episode.
I knew it. I could just sense it. Jeff, could you feel that this was supposed to be a pilot episode? Everything about this episode said this is a pilot episode to me.
Yeah, you laid it out perfectly. Here's who I am. Here's why I'm here. This is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But then I love this one from Mr. Krosis, talking about the deal Gideon made to start blasting ships out of the sky. He says, someone on the internet told me that quarantines don't even work.
Yeah.
It's a lot to dig up in that one.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I can go wherever I want. If they don't want to catch this disease, they just need to be somewhere I'm not. America.
Right.
Right. Here's what I want to know. Okay, this is a question that is very specific to our international folks out there. All right, Canada, you don't count. Sorry, you're too close. Here in America, there was a very sharp division during COVID specifically, between people who were willing to, like, I don't know, wear a mask in public and keep their distance from folks and, I don't know, wash their hands, right? Eventually that even morphed in because it became political, right? It wasn't medical. It became political about the vaccine. Please, if you're watching this, stop the comments about vaccines. I'm not even going to respond to this. But what I want to know from the international folks, did you guys also have that same thing? Or did you guys just pretty much like be like, hey, we're going to go with the scientists and the professionals and the medical doctors in this whole deal. Like, where were you in that? I'm just curious. I don't know because in my mind, it was like just us, like half of us were being dumb and the other half weren't, like with the rest of the world. Like, I often feel that way about my beloved country here, Jeff, is like half our country is dumb and then we're chilling with everybody else. But actually turns out maybe everybody else also has segments of their portion that are being dumb too. So
Rush wrote a song about it in their Test for Echo record from '96 called Half the World. So yeah, it's a thing.
All right. Let's see here.
I do like this one from Ben talking about how Gideon became captain, which is the true canon, this one or Warzone.
See,
yes.
So, well, no, this is where I go back to what I said earlier. Warzone is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This was his dream. Dreams don't necessarily reflect exactly what happened. So, but I am right. Am I right? The way that this says Gideon became captain contradicts what we actually saw happen in Warzone. True?
I think it does. Or I don't know that it contradicts necessarily.
Yeah.
That might be a strong word. I don't think it's like two different things. I just don't think they're things that flow together smoothly. But understanding that Sheridan never talks to any of the other ambassadors or worlds in the Interstellar Alliance, wow, totally makes sense.
Yeah,
that they wouldn't know exactly what happened.
There you go. Oh, here we go. Katerina, our friend Katerina, says she expected us to be recording on Friday. Today's Wednesday, actually, the day we're recording, and was a little said she was going to miss it, but she got to be with us. So, hello, Katerina. Speaking of, I believe this we have a couple Katerinas out there. I believe this is our international friend who's out there.
Well, I think she's down in California, but was born internationally.
Really? I thought she was still international. Okay, cool.
Shared her incredible origin story with us. It was amazing.
And we'll hold that. That's her story to tell, not ours. So we won't do that.
She made another great comment. Katerina did that goes back to a comment we made in another episode. But the question of sacrificing some to save somewhat more is a recurring theme in the 100 as well. Good show.
Yeah. To go back to the previous, good thing humans have shown that they're very good at keeping quarantine and always obey the mask mandates. Right.
I love this idea from Trey. This show could easily have been told from the planet's culture being the protagonist, with the events all happening from their perspective. Like, how upset would that make us?
Yeah, he's not wrong. Trey, you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Let's see here. What else is in here? Ben has this comment. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to call it a debate. You're right. Oh wait, no, sorry. This was something. Sorry, Ben. That was something that they were talking about in the chat that
you got to be careful, Brent, what you say on the show. You have this quote right now. Quote, Canada, you don't count. Unquote.
Somebody's going to clip that, and they're going to be like, he hates Canada. He hates Canadians. That is not true. I love Canadians. I love Canada. One of my best friends in high school, Jeff, one fun fact, I don't know if I've ever told you this. One of my best friends in high school played football with him. His name was Alec.
Okay.
Alec, if you're out there watching, I haven't seen you since then. If you're out there watching this, hi, how you doing? Please contact me. I'd love to talk to you. We called him Canada. He came to live with, dude was like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, came to live with his rich aunt and uncle and he went to school with us. And
not so much because the neighborhood was getting tough, because it was Canada.
Right. And not that he went to like some private Bel-Air academy either. No, we went to public school.
Right.
But he was with me, but he wasn't Alec. He was Canada. To everybody, he was Canada. And we named him after the whole dang country. Anyway, also spending a lot of time overseas and living overseas, you tend to gravitate towards people who speak your language natively and at least share somewhat of your culture, and Canadians are close enough. So I had a lot of Canadian friends, and I understand why they keep those flags on their backpacks, just to let folks know.
Not American. Right. I'm Canadian.
I know it's easy to be confused, but let's see here.
What do you say we call this one?
Yeah.
I need to go rest my tongue to be quite transparent.
Oh, I really want that to be that's what she said, but it wouldn't work that way.
It wouldn't, no.
But
I mean, could.
Oh, Jeff, please do this. If you really want to confuse your colleagues, work vivisected homunculus into your next meeting.
I want to confuse people, not end up in an HR investigation. You do not talk about your vivisected homunculus in a professional environment. Keep that
so
you
dirty.
Keep that homunculus.
First of all,
you keep that home.
No, that's when you walk into HR and they start talking about that. Time out. I'm going to get up and walk out of here unless you can define for me and tell me what a vivisected homunculus is. If you don't know, I'm stopping this conversation right now. And if you do, then you need to tell me why it's wrong.
Why I can't have it here out of my clothes. Oh man.
Can you imagine walking into HR and having them like blast you and be like, stop. I'm leaving this meeting if you can't define this word for me right now.
I have stories for you there. I
bet you do.
Me and HR go back and forth. I'm just thinking that's at this point right now. I'm really glad that we don't have an HR department.
Oh, you and I would have been fired so many times before now.
Yes.
Oh, here you go. Here's a great contradiction. IPX sent Eilerson in this episode, but in the first in Warzone, Gideon recruited him. That's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Canada says it's okay. We're used to it.
Sorry.
Hey, what's that about? All right.
We're going to get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah, we're going to get out of here. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Council Chambers who are with us. Thank you guys for showing up. It's always more fun with you guys here. This group is growing from also, we did a better job giving them a heads up this time than we did last time. So
yeah, and it's a real indicative of how we operate, right? This time was, hey, you want to go tonight? Yeah, I have this going on about this time. Okay, cool. As opposed to, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, but even still that, hey, what time? In an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I have an hour. Yeah. And I think it turned out to be closer to an hour and a half, but still. Yeah. Parent thing. Anyway. Hey, Jeff, man, go rest that tongue and get better. Because the numb tongue, while funny, just it makes the podcasting hard.
A little difficult. It does.
Little difficult.
I have a little more editing to do on this one than I do on others. I'll just say that.
Are you going to dub in any words? Are you like wait till your voice gets better and you'll just say it, you'll dub it in?
That'd be funny. Do the Simpsons thing.
All right, Council Chambers, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. If you're on YouTube and you stayed all the way through this as well, God bless you. You're amazing. And we'll catch you guys next time. Remember, the first rule of Club 65 is we don't talk about Club 65 outside of Club 65, but you can drop one down in the comments. Let us know that you were here. Talk to you guys next time.
Love it.